Everything begins in a hospital room numbered 666. A guy is tied to the bed, smiling calmly. Another person with white hair approaches, saying that the time has come and asks if he wants to say anything. The guy, expressionless, says he is sure it will be like the book and electricity will heal his body. The man then performs an extremely precise act and electricity surges through the boy on the bed. You can even see the poor guy's skeleton, and the alarm in the room sounds. Immediately, the doctors rush in and take the charred boy away. In the ambulance, everyone is confused. The white-haired guy asks what happened. One of the doctors scowls and says to take this lunatic with them too. Observing the ambulance departure, someone comments that one of the patients is an astronomer and the other was a medical professor. Although they are quite eccentric, theoretically, they have respectable hobbies. The only problem is that these two patients from room 666 always try to kill someone when they have an episode. At the emergency center where the boy was taken, the man asks how he feels while holding a needle. The boy smiles, saying that the acupuncture points really relax his body. The white-haired man asks if it's the little needle he placed on his forehead. The guy in the bed says maybe it is. A circle appeared in front of him with a system activation notice. On that day, on Taishan Mountain, a fire cat was wreaking havoc. The reporter warned of the dangers and said that warriors had already been sent to deal with the monster. Meanwhile, in the surgical center, the system detected that the new master had a problem in his head. 3 minutes before the surgery began, the doctors asked what the lunatic did this time. The man explained that he tied a little string and shocked him. His heart was beating at 250 per second, and they were going to anesthetize him. Despite being shocked, he said he felt very well. The burns around his skin were just impurities being cleaned. The doctor berated him, saying it was ridiculous to have burned himself because of idiocy. The guy didn't react and said it was better not to use anesthesia because he liked to use pain to train his mind. Seeing the inhaler approach, he said he wouldn't pay if he were anesthetized. The doctor ignored him, saying a psychiatric patient like him had no money anyway. The protagonist kept saying anesthesia was useless and his mental power. The boy went to sleep, remembering that in childhood, his mother was always exasperated by his antics. At 11 years old, he tried to cut off a useless piece of flesh. After many crazy actions, his mother took him to a psychiatric hospital. While she looked at the results, he asked her to throw him from the 5th floor. The record said he wasn't a danger to society, but was a danger to himself. In the VIP room, the white-haired guy was eating a banana. As soon as the protagonist opened his eyes, he said he was about to level up and needed to be hit with a needle. The white-haired guy agreed, and the protagonist asked if he would use an Earth-level technique. The guy said it wasn't. It was a new version, the universe version, and then stabbed the needle into his arm. After finishing, he asked how the boy felt. The boy said he was hearing voices in his head, and his friend asked what they were saying. He tried to speak, but his heartbeat was just dropping. The doctors were called in frantically to help him, while the strongest man's system activated. Later, the exhausted doctors, having performed surgery all night, celebrated with food brought by a wife. However, as soon as he put it in his mouth, a nurse informed him that the crazy patient had hurt himself again. He threw the food on the floor, questioning how it was possible. She apologized, saying they were not used to dealing with such people. At the psychiatric hospital, a guy asked if they would need a grave for the boy. The chief named Shihag said no. Unfortunately, the protagonist, Lin Fan, was still alive. It was best not to prepare a grave until it was absolutely certain he was dead. When the phone rang, it was the hospital where Lin Fan was, informing them they had just performed surgery and the lunatic had hurt himself again. Shihag turned to the boy, saying they might need a grave after all. Lilifo said he didn't want to deal with the boy anymore and would take him back to their place. Shihag, however, doesn't accept it and says there's no way he's keeping this lunatic in the hospital. He hangs up the phone and slams it on the table. Meanwhile, in front of the room, the white-haired guy wonders why the boy hasn't gotten up. Sitting on the bench looking all innocent, he's curious about the voice in Lin Fan's head. He takes out some needles, suggesting it might be a good idea to try again. The crazy guy uses them all on himself and faints on the bench. In the operating room, the doctor mentions that when he was called to this place, it said he would gain experience with extreme cases. He didn't expect it to be this kind of thing. He had already saved this kid 48 times. He starts to cry, and the nurses wipe the boy's tears. A message appears in front of the protagonist's face from the system, asking if he wants to strengthen his body. Seeing he can't respond, the system decides to choose on its own and selects yes. The body strengthening process begins with a 36-hour countdown. The news continues to report on the creatures appearing, making life difficult for everyone in the city. Outside, Lai Leifu is leaning against the ambulance, thinking everyone is late. Eventually, the nurses and the guys bring Lin Fan's body, saying everything finally went well. Leifu tells them to hurry and get the kid into the ambulance. When the driver arrives, Leifu insists on driving to ensure the kid is taken properly. Just as he's accelerating, one of the nurses asks him to wait. She informs him that the doctor who performed the surgery asked her to give him something. He receives a mask with "I quit" written on it. At the psychiatric hospital, the owner is praying to Amitabha, begging God for Lin Fan not to return. However, he hears the sound of the ambulance and knows the kid is coming. Leifu parks and immediately pulls Lin Fan out. Shihaji comments that there's no need for such haste, the surgery just finished. Approaching the boys, he says that for the sake of their friendship, it would be better if they went back to the hospital. Life drops his knees saying he can't take them back or all the doctors at his hospital will go crazy. Shihagi feels awkward, not expecting the guy to beg so much. Life grabs his shoulder, saying he's sure he cares deeply for the boys. He accelerates the ambulance, saying he can keep both stretchers. Everyone remains silent, knowing the poor owner isn't happy. He approaches Lin Fan and asks how he's feeling. As always, Lin Fan says he's fine, but the hospital staff isn't. On the other side, the white-haired lunatic claims he's perfect too. The poor director simply tells them to take him to the room. Back in 666, they're now in straitjackets. Lin Fan smiles, saying the voice in his head told him the body's strengthening is complete. He feels incredibly powerful. A friend comments that it's amazing they actually succeeded. Lin Fan smiles back, saying the electricity and universal acupuncture really work. The two psychopaths are smiling and Lin Fan asks if they should try the hammer method again. People are standing at the door and the director finds it strange that they're so calm. The nurses don't even want to mention that they asked for the hammer to hit each other. Shihai walks away smiling, saying everything is finally under control. Meanwhile, under the moonlight, a girl walks through the city. As she fiddles with her phone, something approaches from behind. Seeing what it is, she gets scared and screams, but is devoured by something. The next morning, Lin Fan wakes up and easily breaks out of the straitjacket. He goes to Zhang and says he's come to save him. Once freed, Fan comments that Lin Fan's abs are very defined and wants to touch them. He pokes him a few times, saying he's very strong. Our boy explains that it's the result of cultivation. His body still has 17 hours left to be fully strengthened. In the corridor, a guy is fiddling with the wires until he's covered by a shadow and is terrified of what it could be. Something touches his shoulder and he turns to see Zhang saying hi. The electrician seems to recognize his face since Shihagi introduces the patients from room 666 to everyone. In that hospital, they are more dangerous than any awakened monster. Zhang smiles and says hi, while the electrician trembles. Amidst this distraction, Lin Fan grabs the hammer and runs off, with Zhang retreating in front of him. The electrician was worn out, thinking that place was really strange. He went to the toolbox and noticed his hammer was missing. Immediately, he heard noises coming from the room and wondered what it was. As the saying goes, curiosity killed the cat. He went to the window to see what was happening. In front of the stretcher, Zhang was tenderizing the meat. The guy trembled and asked if he had seen everything. The poor electrician ran off, shouting that there was a psychopath upstairs. The scene changes, showing the electrician being carried by the doctors, insisting he doesn't want to go back. They are taking him towards the room while he screams that it was all covered in blood. Upon arrival, everything seems peaceful, with the two calmly lying in bed. The only thing present is a small mess on the floor, and they claim to be drinking Sprite. Shihab calms down a bit and tells the electrician that as he can see, nothing is happening there. The guy says he understands and just wants his hammer to leave and never return, unless they double his payment. Shihab asks about the hammer and orders it to be returned immediately. Lin Fan, somewhat confused, asks if it's the hammer he had kept. Everyone finds it a bit peculiar. He takes it out of the cart and asks if that's what they wanted. Shihab confirms. Lin Fan tells him to come and get it, but the director, terrified, says to place it on the ground. Lin Fan refuses, saying the director must come and take it from his hand. The director, scared because tomorrow is his birthday, feels he must show the others not to fear these boys and agrees to go. People are moved by his bravery. He approaches with his heart racing and takes the hammer. Everyone congratulates him for returning alive. He gives the hammer back to the electrician, assuring there's nothing to fear, but the electrician notices the poor director is sweating heavily. Night falls and news about monsters continues. Some crazies are talking, one saying the girl on TV is his daughter. Another old man looks and asks if he's the brother-in-law. They embrace emotionally and people just watch these antics. Zhang nearby asks Lin Fan if he knows the girl. He confirms, saying she's his girlfriend. Zhang, appearing to believe him, asks if he's sure. An announcement about monsters near Qinshang Street is made. The girl on a platform asks if she should go hunt. Confident, having 4 level 2 powers, her name is Xiang Yang, a 16-year-old healer student. A guy with a talisman says it's a good idea, telling them to go and show their potential. She gets excited, saying they are elite students. Back at the asylum, it's said today is February 29th, but Zhang insists it's March 7th. Lin Fan points out that Zhang doesn't have a watch, but he claims he has a Rolex. A guy with glasses appears, asking if they're talking about Rolexes. He confirms it's a Rolex, but says it's broken. However, as a professional and recognizing it as a masterpiece, he offers to fix it for free. He spits on his hand and tells him to look again. Zhang looks down and sees his Rolex. Later, he's crying in the room, saying the watch is gone. Lin Fan gives him a juice to calm him down. They chat and Lin Fan mentions hearing the voice in his head again. Zhang asks what it wants when suddenly everything pauses. The system announces that now the body is fully healed, he will be teleported to another universe, but his existence here will be frozen. To return, he must help the founder of the Celestial Forge deal with some schoolboys. In a pink room, a boy feels an aura. Obviously Lin Fan, confused, looking at himself in the mirror, wondering why he's a girl. For a second, He thought he was a boy. He decides to check when the body's mother appears, telling him to come for breakfast. At that moment, she closed the door, realizing she had come in at the wrong time. Lin Fan now wanted to know why his voice turned him into a woman and put him in those pajamas. At the table, his mother remarked that she was too beautiful and all the boys must be following her. He asked his mother about the milk, and she said it was to make him stronger. He poured all the milk into the soup and drank it immediately, commenting that it indeed tasted delicious. His mother was puzzled by this. At the bus stop, he noticed that life outside the hospital was very serene. Since the body's mother told him not to lose her, he decided to follow the usual routine. He was calmly on the bus when a little girl got on. She couldn't reach the handrail, so he gave up his seat for her, and she thanked him. At that moment, a guy with purple hair boarded. Zhang Hao asked why he wasn't saving the seat. He grabbed Lin Fan's face, demanding a response or threatening to slap him. Lin Fan recalled some memories of the girl being bullied. The guy kept slapping, thinking today Lin Fan seemed different. Suddenly, a man rushed onto the bus, telling the driver to speed up because a lunatic was coming. People were running outside, and the maniac entered, aiming to hit someone. The guy harassing Lin Fan was startled and said his psychopath was entering. Lin Fan calmly stated it was just an ordinary guy. The maniac ran towards the girl and ink splattered. The bully was shocked and trembling. Lin Fan had blocked the attack with his hand and asked why a monk wanted to kill people. The man retorted he wasn't a monk and ordered Lin Fan to let go. Lin Fan repeated for him to let go. The passengers on the bus were confused by this madness. The man began to sweat and release his grip, falling to the floor and asking if Lin Fan was crazy. Lin Fan demanded he answer the question. Later, the police surrounded the bus and everyone was being escorted out. The man was still terrified, telling Lin Fan to stay away. Lin Fan wanted to return the man's tools, but he refused to take them back. Lin Fan said it was fine. Meanwhile, his friend was outside, his soul practically leaving his body. Lin Fan called out to him, saying it was a pleasure to see him again. He extended his hand, suggesting they should get to know each other better. The trembling guy greeted him. He felt something sticky and realized what it was. While the friend stood paralyzed, staring at his own hand, a nurse came to apply some bandages. Lin Fan assured her it was fine, explaining it was a kind of training to strengthen the mind. The nurse quickly noticed he wasn't normal. The guy who had invaded the bus was being taken away by the police. Seeing Lin Fan, he ran off, shouting he was heading to jail. A guard congratulated Lin Fan, saying the police department would contact the school. Lin Fan dismissed it, saying he was late and had to go. The officer admired his spirit, but told him to stay put as they needed to discuss his injuries with the school. Lin Fan said it was nothing and he was just using the pain to strengthen his mind. The officer, now certain something was off with him, stayed silent. Lin Fan found himself in front of Shenyang School, a body he was in. Walking around, he imagined Zhang would be a great teacher, but thought all the students would run away from the needles, making it quite scary. He went to an empty classroom, sat down, and began to doze off. He remembered his mother asking the doctor if he could attend school. The doctor had advised against it, which saddened her, and so Lin Fan had never been in a classroom. At that moment, he was poked with a pencil. A girl with a ribbon said he had crossed the line. She was confident that hurting him would make him cry out in pain. However, he just stared at her, and she found it strange that he didn't react. She wondered if she hadn't poked deep enough and applied more force. Lin Fan asked if it was some kind of joke, as people in the hospital always did this. He turned to relax, and she found it odd, wondering what this talk about a hospital was. She approached to apply more force and ketchup sprayed on her face, got up, and ran away. At that moment, a blue-haired guy told Zhang Hao that the protagonist was bothering his girlfriend. He noticed Zhang Hao was down and asked what the problem was. Zhang Hao said it was nothing serious, just better to leave that Tianyang lunatic alone. The blue-haired guy remarked that the only strange thing about that kid was how effeminate he was. Yeah, in the end, he's just a kid. Lin Fan approached and greeted Zhang Hao, saying it was nice to see they were in the same class. Smiling, the blue-haired guy wondered why this idiot was there. However, Zhang Hao, excited, stood up to greet him. Lin Fan mentioned remembering him from the bus, and Zhang Hao agreed it was quite a coincidence. With that, Lin Fan walked away, leaving Zhang Hao desolate at his desk. A while later, the teacher entered the room and asked if they remembered the poem she assigned yesterday. The students were scared she might ask them to read it because they knew she was ruthless. She immediately called the protagonist and asked him to read. Everyone knew he was timid and were sure he would stumble over the words. However, Lin Fan simply stood up and said he didn't remember it. The teacher called his name, but her sixth sense kicked in, realizing something was strange about him today. Lin Fan asked if he could sit down and she allowed it. He thanked her, and everyone wondered how he escaped her so easily. In the classroom, students were chatting while Lin Fan stood in a corner with a key in hand. The blue-haired guy put a hand on his shoulder and asked what he did with Zhang Hao and the teacher. Lin Fan didn't respond, seemingly focused on something. The guy grabbed him by the collar, demanding an answer. Lin Fan mentioned that electric current could stimulate the human body and strengthen it, so he planned to test it. The guy doubted his sanity and challenged him to do it. Without hesitation, Lin Fan inserted the key and both were shocked, literally. Another friend, noticing the commotion, asked what was happening and got shocked too. From a distance, someone asked if they were forming a train. Soon, the whole class was being shocked. Lin Fan commented that the amperage was too low, making it ineffective, but seeing everyone on the floor, he wondered why they were all sleeping and warned they might catch a cold. Ignoring them, he decided to go to the bathroom. The teacher at the door was ready to teach trigonometric functions. He opened the door excitedly, but dropped his materials in shock. The entire class was electrocuted. He called emergency services, reporting something strange had happened. Ambulances arrived, and Lin Fan wondered why there were so many, thinking high school was indeed scary. Everyone at school heard that Class 12 was electrocuted except for the kid who used to suffer. Lin Fan was returning when someone called him from behind a tree. He approached, asking if they were calling him, and a shade girl confirmed. He asked if there was a problem while she trembled, holding a love letter behind her back. Suddenly, someone snatched it from her and asked what it was. A guy named Tang Ji asked if she was going to give it to Chen Yang. She turned, demanding it back, but he raised his arm, teasing her about being cute. While he played with the letter, she insisted he return it. Lin Fan jumped and snatched it from his hand. Tang Ji was confused, and Lin Fan asked why he was doing that. Tang Ji questioned if he had really snatched it and approached Lin Fan, saying if he read what was written, he would leave him alone. Lin Fan asked the girl if she wanted him to know what was in it, and she said no. Lin Fan declared he wouldn't read it if she didn't agree. Tang Ji punched the tree, leaving a hole, and the girl knelt, saying it was better to read it than suffer. Lin Fan said they couldn't hurt him, so he wouldn't read it. Tang Ji demanded he repeat that, and his friend said Lin Fan was asking for a beating. However, Lin Fan gave a reverse punch to the tree, splitting it in half. The guys were trembling, their souls leaving their bodies. Meanwhile, other students ran to the teacher to report that some students were bothering Lin Fan. The teacher, angry, said he would solve this now. However, upon arriving, he was also shocked. Lin Fan was telling Tang Ji that he wasn't acting right and made him repeat that stealing others' belongings was wrong. Tang Ji, terrified, repeated it. Seeing the destroyed tree, Tang Ji obediently listened. Lin Fan slapped the letter on Tang Ji's face, telling him he was too skinny and needed to go home and eat. Embarrassed, Tang Ji agreed and said he was going home. The trio ran off, and the teacher questioned if the story seemed strange. He asked the students if this was normal, and they said no. Lin Fan returned the letter to the girl, but she shyly said she wanted to give it to him. Lin Fan responded that pink letters are usually love confessions, something old Jean told him. She confirmed and asked if he could be her boyfriend. The teacher, sure Lin Fan would accept, told him to reject it. However, Lin Fan said no. He stated that his life goal was to become the strongest man and she didn't deserve him. The girl ran off crying, saying he didn't deserve her. Lin Fan realized it was impossible to understand girls, just like Zhang said, but he didn't care much and left. The body Lin Fan took over, Chen Yang was a lovable and skinny boy, making everyone think he wasn't manly. But the girl thought he was different, and Chen Yang wanted to confess to her. He prayed every night that if she confessed, he would accept. However, Lin Fan told her she didn't deserve him. At the hospital, the doctors were puzzled about what these students were thinking. The boy woke up and told them not to cut his clothes because they were Armani, very expensive, and then fainted again. The doctor put his hand on his face, remarking that this kid almost died and was thinking about clothes. Later, the students were all in the same room, obviously exhausted, wondering where their parents were. One asked what happened, and he said it started when he touched Lin Fan. They blamed him, but he told everyone to shut up, not imagining that maniac Lin Fan would do something like that. He mourned that it was all Lin Fan's fault, but strangely, he wasn't in the room. The blue-haired guy said Lin Fan should be in the emergency room since he was the closest. Asked if he was dead, and everyone fell silent. They began to comment that Chenin wasn't such a bad person. Even though they teased him, he was a kind boy in the end. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. They were sure it was family bringing food, but it was Lin Fan asking if they were his classmates. Everyone was shocked to see him unharmed. He walked in with 2 bags, saying it was hard to find them there. While they wondered how he was intact, he announced he brought milk and sausages for everyone. He approached the blue-haired guy, who told him not to come closer, saying they didn't want his dirty food. Zhang told them not to blame Lin Fan, saying he was just crazy and he wanted the food. The friend kept nagging, asking why Zhang respected Lin Fan so much, until one of the guys in the room said the boss had sent a message. Everyone was shocked to see it, and the blue-haired guy trembled. It was photos of what happened that morning with Tang Ji. He dropped the phone and told Lin Fan it was incredible that he had come to take care of his friends. Meanwhile, on top of the hospital, a guy was looking at the scenery. He remembered someone holding documents in his face. It was his ex-wife, telling him that since he was going to die, he should transfer everything to her. Seeing the guy next to him, he wondered why she didn't wait until he died. Tired of it, he spread his wings. Back in the student's room, Lin Fan was there when the guy fell to the side, shocking everyone. Lin Fan saw it, grabbed him by the arm, and held him. However, the arm bone broke, so he grabbed him by the shoulder and threw him back into the room. He asked the guy why he tried to spread his wings and why he wanted to know why he was saved. Sad, he revealed he had a fatal disease and just wanted to end it all quickly. Lin Fan patted his head, saying the director mentioned that when you're sad, you should cry. The guy started to cry, clutching Lin Fan's legs and sobbing. The doctors entered the room, asking about the guy who attempted to fly. As he was being taken out, the doctor asked if Lin Fan had really saved him. Zhang Hao then called out to Lin Fan, pointing out that his arm was broken. Lin Fan seemed unfazed, and everyone was scared at how intact this lunatic appeared. He told the doctor it was fine, as he was used to it and would heal quickly. The doctors wondered what he meant by used to it. Meanwhile, the gangsters were talking about how cool he was. Now, everyone at school called him the new boss. The blue-haired guy suggested kneeling, and Tang Ji said he was now the little brother of that kid. In the operating room, Lin Fan refused anesthesia, saying the pain would make him stronger. He told the doctors he was as familiar with that place as they were. They concluded he was going mad from the pain. When Lin Fan tried to refuse the injection again, the doctors told him it was already done. He revealed he had no money and started to sleep. The system analyzed and announced that the mission was complete, awarding him 2 rewards for completing an S-rank task. Time, which had been frozen, would now resume normally. He found himself back in the hospital with Zhang asking what he was talking about. Confused, Lin Fan looked to the side and asked Zhang if he was talking about the voice in his head. Zhang agreed, and Lin Fan explained the whole story about turning into a boy in girls' pajamas. Zhang remarked that it was a perverted dream. Meanwhile, in the world he had altered, the mother was crying beside the body until he woke up, feeling pain in his arm, and started to thrash around. The next day, he went to school, terrified because he was already injured and knew it wouldn't be easy. At that moment, the gangs approached him. Everyone stared at him, trembling. Suddenly, they knelt, telling the master he could pass. He looked pale, unable to show any expression, and just agreed, walking past like a boss. Behind the trees, the girl remarked that he truly was a brave man, realizing she didn't deserve him. At the city's special center, people were discussing the increasing intelligence of the creatures. Monk Liu Hai claimed it was impossible for creatures to become so smart. Tao Ming warned that if they continued evolving, humanity would soon be extinct. The head of the table confirmed he wasn't lying. Kim Song asked what would happen at this rate. Another monk, Orelho, slammed the table, saying the problems had already started. Someone then told everyone to shut up, announcing that with this new intelligence, creatures of the same level as adventurers could now defeat them. The leader declared that everyone there would have to fight to the death or save the city. He was the head of the association and the strongest in the city. Back at the hospital, everyone was congratulating the president because it was his birthday. He thanked them, and they told him to make a wish. He clasped his hands, wishing for a calm day. However, at that moment, a boy appeared, saying they had problems with the guys from room 666. The lunatics were causing a revolution, holding up signs saying they wanted something. The staff thought it was eggs or some kind of food and brought them, but the patients said it wasn't what they wanted. They showed the signs again, and no one had any idea what these crazies wanted. The president came and took a look, telling them they wouldn't get it. They stared at him and fell to the ground, thrashing and demanding it. The president frowned and ordered to bring it. The staff, still clueless, asked what it was. Meanwhile, in room 666, Lin Fan was lifting 100 kilograms weights, while Zhang was hanging on a punching bag. Hours later, everything was completely destroyed. Zhang strangely congratulated Lin Fan for enduring his training, indicating Zhang wasn't that weak either. The scene shifted to a tunnel where rats scurried around. Some adventurers were fighting against a giant wolf. Talismans struck its chest. It was Xiang Yang's group from the beginning. She activated the power of a recovery pill and healed the knight in front. He used a sword technique and aimed it at the wolf, hitting it directly. The creature agonized but immediately charged at them. The monk activated the power in his bead necklace, creating a projection to stop the attack. However, the wolf changed its expression and went to swipe with its paw. The talisman-wielding guy screamed as the attack hit Xiang Yang directly. She was thrown against the wall, severely injured. The talisman guy realized it was the wolf's strategy to eliminate the healer first. He warned that the beast wouldn't be easy to defeat and ordered someone to get Xiang Yang out of there. He threw 3 more talismans, but the monster easily defended with its tail. It continued to increase its strength against the monk, who was starting to run out of energy. They realized the creature had pretended to be weak at the beginning. The monk was devoured in front of the group. He launched an attack, and the blue-shirted guy pushed the talisman forward. Perforated, he told his friend to flee. Now face to face with the creature, while the rest of the group was already dead, he screamed for Xiang Yang to get up and run. She could only watch the fight in despair. He activated energy in his blade and charged again. Before his attack could hit, she tried to use a recovery pill on him, which strengthened him, but it was the last of her energy. However, his blade was flung away, and he was crushed by the wolf. Under its paw, he activated a spell, causing his body and the creature to explode. The area was engulfed in flames, but the creature seemed to have survived. Despite being injured, it managed to escape the tunnel. Meanwhile, at the mental hospital, Zhang was counting ants on the grass while Lin Fan followed the system's strategies to strengthen himself. He tried to concentrate as Zhang called him. She picked up an ant and told him to look, saying it was crying. Finding it strange, she noticed Li Fang was red and asked if he was sick. The system warned him to be careful as the technique could explode his body. Zhang started acupuncture to save her friend. He was in pain and screamed, sent flying. A poor ant paid the price. The system notified him that he had unlocked absolute vision, and even the system was confused as to why he had received it. Lin Fan told Zhang he was following the instructions of the voice in his head, but it hurt a lot and he was glad it helped. Zhang, excited, asked how he felt after the acupuncture and if he wanted more. Smiling, he said it was the best ever, but now he was hungry. Zhang had an idea, picked up an ant, and told him to eat it, saying it was a bit sour but very tasty. Just as he was about to try it, a nurse called them for lunch and they released the poor ant. In the cafeteria, people commented on how much he was eating. Lin Fan had devoured about 10 trays. A nurse told him to stop or he'd get a stomachache. She tried to take the tray, but he wouldn't let go. Lin Fan looked at the doctor and said he was still hungry. The doctor wondered if he had an eating disorder. He bit a metal spoon and the doctor was sure something was wrong with him. The system congratulated him on receiving the technique but warned that the side effect was extreme hunger. In the tunnel, people were photographing the aftermath. Unfortunately, no one had survived. A man with an eye patch was there, observing everything. He told someone on the phone that it was 4 against 1, but some prodigies had lost. The person responded that if the rumor about creatures getting smarter was true, it was alarming. The eye patch guy confirmed, saying the monster had targeted the healer first to kill the rest more easily. The voice on the phone asked where the monster was now, and he said it had apparently gone through the sewers. The challenge was now predicting where it would appear next. He told the guy with glasses to alert everyone about the danger. The guy with glasses asked what they should tell the families. He instructed them to clean up the bodies and tell the families that the kids were amazing and did a great job, but they were a bit stubborn and reckless. He then advised not to mention that last part. Back with the president, someone arrived to inform him that the kitchen staff had all fainted. The poor president asked for an explanation. 2 hours earlier, people were remarking that Lin Fan seemed strange for being so hungry. As he was being taken away, another lunatic asked when he would return the food in his belly. Lin Fan looked at Zhang, who confirmed something. Knowing his friend needed help, he reached out his hand on the table and started headbutting it. Everyone rushed to stop him before he hurt himself, and in the commotion, Lin Fan escaped, giving a thumbs up to his friend, who returned it, battered but grateful. With the mission complete, Lin Fan headed to the kitchen where the women were working. They were calm until a shadow appeared, saying it was hungry. They were startled and saw Lin Fan, who said he wanted to eat a lot of meat. Everyone knew who the patients from room 666 were and fainted immediately. Back with the president, after receiving this information, he ordered a raise for the poor women and asked why Lin Fan was so hungry. The nurse explained that they were still running tests but didn't know the cause yet. That night, near the hospital's sewer, a paw emerged, sensing no fighters sent nearby. It was the wolf from earlier needing a quiet place to heal. Moving like a shadow, it concluded that it was best to find a kind human to care for it. Transforming into a puppy, it thought that looking cute would make anyone unable to resist. Once they saw it was injured, they would surely care for it. In room 666, Zhang was complaining that his watch had broken again and needed fixing, but he had no money. Lin Fan said he didn't have any either. Zhang suggested kidnapping someone for ransom, and Lin Fan asked who he would kidnap. Zhang pointed at Lin Fan, saying he could kidnap him and then claim the reward. Lin Fan asked who would pay the ransom, and Zhang said it would be his girlfriend from the TV. Lin Fan corrected him, saying she wasn't his girlfriend, but his wife, and she wouldn't pay anything. Zhang agreed, saying he had heard a saying that one lives longer if they leave all their money with their wife. At that moment, they heard a dog's sound, and Lin Fan said there really was one at the window. The puppy was all cute, but in its mind, it was thinking these stupid humans had taken the bait. Zhang approached, saying it was adorable, and Lin Fan agreed. What they didn't realize was that the dog was stretching from the ground. Zhang decided to let it in to heal it. With the puppy on the bed, Lin Fan said it was lucky because it would receive acupuncture. The puppy got excited, thinking it would heal quickly now. As Zhang prepared, the dog thought that once healed, it would eat both of them. However, it got a needle in its forehead and was paralyzed on the bed. Zhang said that its trembling was a good sign, and since it seemed to be enjoying it, he added more needles. The dog wanted to ask them to stop but was incapacitated within 10 seconds. Zhang was curious why the dog didn't seem to be getting better and asked Lin Fan if he was still hungry. Lin Fan, unfortunately, wasn't full. The system then alerted him that it had found an entity with a lot of energy in front of him. He saw it was the puppy with level 2 energy, and the system even provided a recipe on how to prepare it. Lin Fan found it incredibly cute and concluded that something so cute must be very tasty. The puppy wondered when cube equated to tasty. Seeing them approach, it was scared as they clearly intended to eat it. Zhang removed the needles, saying there was no point in saving the dog anymore. Lin Fan agreed, saying it was a shame, but the dog would need to be cooked. The puppy realized these two were insane. Zhang patted it and told it to rest in peace. The puppy was getting increasingly angry at being treated this way. Zhang noted it was still alive. Lin Fan said it didn't matter. With that bleeding, it would soon die. They began to pray, saying it was a shame, but it would be a great meal. Zhang complained it was too small, frustrating the puppy further. Tired of holding back, the puppy started transforming back into its true form, a giant wolf. It asked how they dared think of eating it. Zhang smiled, saying that now it was big enough for both of them. The wolf told them to stop underestimating it and went to bite. However, Lin Fan grabbed the wolf by its teeth and threw it onto the bed, scolding it for trying to bite humans. The poor creature trembled, unable to understand how this human had so much strength. It tried to bite Lin Fan's arm but couldn't cause any harm. Realizing it couldn't injure the boy, the wolf was confused as Zhang commented on how soft the wolf's fur was and felt like petting it. After petting it, Zhang said it was time to begin and stuck out his tongue in anticipation. The monster thought it was a cursed level 2 creature, not a pet, and wondered why these two were humiliating it. Lin Fan then stretched out his hand and slapped the wolf, knocking out all its teeth, warning it to stop thinking about harming Mr. Zhang. While Zhang hugged it, the wolf was desolate, trying to gauge if these guys were fighter level 3 or 4, or maybe even higher. As Zhang petted the wolf, Lin Fan wished it would die quickly because he was hungry. Zhang remarked that the tail was fluffy and wanted to see it wag. Lin Fan ordered the wolf to wag its tail, which it initially refused to do, but a squeeze of its teeth made it comply. The wolf's plan was to respect Lin Fan, and when given a chance, devour Zhang. But Zhang insisted on seeing it wag its tail like a tornado, not just side to side. The wolf thought these bastards were violating its rights, but a squeeze of its teeth and a slap on the head made it perform the tail helicopter. Zhang said it was the cutest dog ever, and now they were sure it would be delicious. The best part was that it was big enough to feed both of them. Lin Fan stared eagerly at the meal. Then the lunatic asked how they would cook it since he liked fried meat. Lin Fan wanted to make a soup, but the problem was they didn't have a fire. The wolf felt relieved. But then Lin Fan suggested using electricity. Zhang agreed it was a great idea, saying that in the last training, Lin Fan smelled delicious too. The wolf, lying on the bed, wondered if it was really in the human world. The next scene showed the wolf begging them to stop while being electrocuted. Zhang remarked that electricity was indeed similar to fire in the end. Some other patients observed from a distance, wondering why they weren't invited to the party. A while later, smoke was rising from the wolf, and Zhang commented that it seemed delicious. Lin Fan said it wasn't quite ready yet. The wolf agonized until it lost its life and went to the heavens. Zhang touched the chin and said the meat seemed very good. The psychos were drooling and began to eat. A nurse was walking down the corridor. It was Lu Jiang, one of the new hires. He remembered being told that if something strange happened, he should check room 666. With the power out, he decided to investigate. When he shone his flashlight, he saw Zhang and Lin Fan munching away with the giant head of the wolf behind them. He wondered if he was really holding a head, and Zhang invited him to join them. The poor guy fell to the floor and immediately ran off. The next moment, the president was coming, telling him to stop lying. But the guy insisted it was true. There was a giant-headed dog staring at him. The president turned on the generator and the lights came back on. Entering the room, the lunatics greeted him good night. The president asked what they were doing and what that was. They both said it was a dog rug, having clearly used every part of the creature. Holding it, the doctor recognized it as the fur of a level 2 creature and had no idea how it ended up there. He asked them what happened, and they said they were just sleeping and didn't know. The president questioned if they hadn't left the bed, and they confirmed they were lying down the whole time. However, someone in the background confirmed they were holding a head. The director then asked what Lin Fan was hiding under the sheet. Lin Fan removed the sheet, saying he wasn't hiding anything, but the director pointed out something glowing. Lin Fan looked down, wondering what it was. The director told Lin Fan to hand it over, and he complied. Staring at the lamp, the director considered asking about the rug, but at that moment, the two said they were going to sleep. The poor president, already exhausted, felt like he was aging a year every month working there. He wished them good night and left the room. As soon as he was gone, Zhang asked Lin Fan if he was full. Lin Fan confirmed but had a question. He wondered why the president always found everything he hid but never found Zhang's needles. Zhang revealed that he hid them in his silky hair. Lin Fan found that interesting and decided to grow his hair out to have a hiding place. Consuming the meat would keep him from feeling extra hungry for 3 days. Meanwhile, in a city building, the eye patch guy was exhausted because the families of the group wouldn't stop pestering him. He swore to end the beast that killed them and crush his bones. His assistant mentioned that an old man wanted to talk. The hospital president informed him that he wouldn't believe it, but 2 of his patients had killed the beast he was looking for. Naturally, the eye patch guy was skeptical, but the person hung up. Angry, he punched the wall and jumped out, wondering why he was heading to the mental hospital at midnight. Meanwhile, the new nurse went downstairs to see if he could find the remains of the creature they had eaten. He found a piece of the skull while they were still throwing bones from above. He knew something was wrong, but the skull vanished, leaving him more confused. The poor guy fainted again. Outside, the president was examining the sewer from which the monster had come when the skull approached, spinning. It nearly hit him, but the eye patch guy stopped it, recognizing it and asking how it died. The director reiterated that he already explained. The eye patch guy threw it on the ground, declaring it impossible for a common person to kill such a creature, especially a lunatic. The director insisted that, although crazy, Lin Fan was not ordinary and handed him a notebook containing records of the patients from room 666. Flipping through the pages, the eye patch guy was incredulous, noting how Lin Fan attempted to end himself daily but only grew stronger. The director confirmed this. He then asked if these two killed the beast, and the director affirmed. He wanted to know how they did, but the doctor admitted he had no idea, as the boys had already eaten it. Shocked, the eye patch guy asked for clarification, and the director explained that they ate the beast. Horrified, the eye patch guy surmised the boys had some special talent and wanted to see them. The next day, Lin Fan and Zhang were on the lawn having a staring contest. It had been going on for a while, and Zhang begged Lin Fan to blink, saying he couldn't take it anymore. Lin Fan looked to the side, saying he blinked. Zhang celebrated, claiming victory. The eye patch guy observed from a distance, noting how Lin Fan stared directly at the sun without reacting and wondered if the boy had a unique talent. Turning to the director, he asked if he could take care of Lin Fan given his talent. The director rushed over, confirming if he was serious. The eye patch guy understood if the director was reluctant, but the director eagerly agreed, even offering the white-haired boy. The only condition was that the eye patch guy couldn't return the boys and had to sign a waiver absolving the hospital of any responsibility for their actions. The eye patch guy assured him that his people wouldn't get hurt provided they didn't face beasts alone. The director smiled, finding the arrangement perfect. The eye patch guy explained that the city was at a critical point, and if these boys became good fighters, they would be well treated. The director, fearing they might wreak havoc on the city, warned him. The eye patch guy acknowledged the increasing strength and intelligence of the creatures, assuring the director he would stay and protect the place. With a hand in his pocket, he agreed, expressing his own concerns about humanity's future. "It doesn't matter what creature comes, I will kill it," the Cyclops said with determination. However, he knew that the power of a single person was limited, so the current focus was to train as many fighters as possible. As the boys chatted, he approached and asked if they had eaten the beast last night. They didn't respond, so he repeated the question. The boys exchanged glances and then turned, denying it, saying they hadn't killed or eaten anything. The Cyclops focused power into his palm and approached Lin Fan's face. Lin Fan just watched, wondering what the golden light was. The Cyclops concluded that due to Lin Fan's lack of reaction, he had a maximum potential of rank 3. Zhang then whispered to Lin Fan that the guy wanted to train him. They both acted all cute, saying it was very kind of him. The Cyclops was confused by their behavior. Lin Fan, however, expressed doubt in the Cyclops' training methods, suggesting that with only one eye, he wouldn't be able to see him practice properly. Zhang suggested that Lin Fan should try their training methods, which might even heal the Cyclops' eye. The Cyclops realized these were the methods described in their records. Zhang assured him that Lin Fan was very strong and that if he let them heal his eye, they could train together. Lin Fan added that Zhang was excellent with acupuncture and could easily cure his eye. While the Cyclops considered this, Zhang buzzed around him, asking if he wanted to try. No national-level doctor had been able to heal his eye, so he doubted these boys could. Ultimately, he sat down, deciding to let them try. He was confident that his strength was such that nothing could harm him. Zhang began, and soon there were 20 needles in his head. Zhang announced he was about to use the Galaxy technique, halfway to the Milky Way. He placed a needle on the Cyclops' forehead, who asked why the names were so funny. Zhang explained that he had researched for years to perfect and named this technique, and everyone who experienced it loved it, which Lin Fan confirmed. The Cyclops remarked that it gave an interesting numbness. Since he didn't expect Zhang to achieve anything, he hadn't activated his protective barrier. He didn't anticipate it would have any effect. Then Zhang applied another needle, announcing it was time for the 13th one. The Cyclops felt something reach his brain and began losing consciousness, but Lin Fan saved him. Zhang asked if he had fainted, and Lin Fan confirmed. Zhang wondered if there was something wrong with his ability, but said he had an idea for making it much better. He asked Lin Fan if he wanted to try, and Lin Fan agreed, trusting him. Soon, both of them were on the ground, confused. Zhang had another idea for improvement, but had no one to test it on, leading to all three collapsing. The director approached, wondering where Zhang hid so many needles, since not even a national-level fighter could survive them. In the emergency room, a special phone rang, indicating it was from that room. Everyone recognized the sound and began crying in despair. Answering it, the person on the other line said they were sending help, noting that this time 3 people were injured. The medics arrived quickly, taking the 3 boys away. The driver, with bandaged eyes, was considered risky by the staff, but he reassured them it was due to Zhang's incredible skill. He shut the doors and sped off in the ambulance. Everyone was concerned about the boys' arrival. At the hospital, Lai Fu wondered why those guys were so resilient. Maybe he should stage an unexpected event to deal with both of them. He slapped himself, questioning his thoughts, but remembered how troublesome they were and slapped himself again. He called the director, pleading not to send the boys again. But 2 days later, they were back. The director reminded him that keeping them hospitalized was better than having them return. Lai Fu complained about constantly needing to find new doctors because of them. The director told him to relax and check the message. Lai Fu found a lot of money with a note warning him not to send the boys back now that he had accepted the bribe. On the stretcher, the system asked if the protagonist wanted to accept an S as defense, but as always, he didn't respond. Because of this, the system chooses for him. In another part of the hospital, the guy who fainted upon seeing the giant dog's head is talking with his wife. She says she's gaining weight, but he reassures her that she looks wonderful, whether slim or chubby. She feels happy and romantic, peeling an apple for him. She hands him the apple, and he is delighted. At that moment, a doctor enters and informs him that he will be discharged in the afternoon, provided he doesn't have another panic attack. A nurse announces that the patients are ready, and he orders them to be brought in. The first to enter is Lin Fan on a stretcher. The man immediately points at him, shouting that it's all his fault, the guy who was eating the meat with the giant dog's head. This shock causes him to faint again. The system continues evolving the protagonist's body, and he wakes up beside Zhang. Meanwhile, on the bed next to him, the man clutches the doctor's leg, begging him to leave the room. Seeing the boy, he says he's hungry and wants to eat something. Their eyes meet, and he faints on the floor again. The Cyclops wakes up, wondering how he ended up like this. His body can withstand bullets, so it shouldn't be affected by mere needles. He's the strongest person in this city, so how was he knocked out by a lunatic? John comes up to him, asking if he's awake and apologizing for not getting it right the first time, but assures that with a few more tries, he'll succeed. The Cyclops agrees to try again, and Zhang excitedly tells Lin Fan that this guy is very kind. Zhang goes through his hair, saying that this time the eye will be cured. The Cyclops is taken to the emergency room because his heart rate dropped. Lin Fan tells him it's okay, he'll get it next time. Upon waking up, the Cyclops wonders if he fainted again because of those needles. It seems impossible since a level 9 beast once broke his bone and didn't pass out. Zhang appears again, apologizing but promising that this time it will work. The Cyclops wants to be sure that it's the needles causing this. Zhang reassures him that it will work this time. The next moment, the Cyclops is being wheeled away because his heart rate is dropping again. Feeling desolate, Lin Fan says that the guy is strong and will survive. Zhang relaxes while the nurse searches for those cursed needles. In the next scene, the Cyclops wakes up with his legs in casts. The doctor informs him that his left leg is completely paralyzed. Zhang approaches, asking how he feels. The Cyclops can't believe he's nearly dying because of this psycho. Zhang looks at Lin Fan, saying the guy doesn't seem to trust him anymore. Lin Fan replies that it seems they are different then. The Cyclops looks angrily to the side, saying these two should like this video to help Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.